So this is her artist bio, that she was born and raised in Montreal. She grew up thinking everyone was an artist, as was her grandmother and her mother. She is a trained journalist, graphic designer, and a self-taught artist. Since she was very young, she has taken every art course she possibly could and has studied with such well-known artists as Carol Lynn Davidson, Nita Leland, Anne Begbie, and Cheryl Kahn. I think you need to be an artist to know who those people are, but very notable. For the past 22 years, she has been teaching courses in watercolor, mixed media, paper arts, creative journaling. Her journal pages were published in the premier issue of Pages, an American journal magazine. She conducts weekly classes in Calgary at the Good Shepard Art Studio, is the Expressive Arts Team Leader and Facilitator at Wellspring, Calgary. That's, for others that don't know, because I didn't even know what Wellspring was until we made that connection. But they're a cancer supportive care community. They have 2 locations and building a 3rd, and it's an amazing program that they have there. And she's also regular with the Tom Baker Cancer Center's Medicine in the Art program until its conclusion. She teaches each summer at Sorrento Center Conference and a retreat center, and for many other retreats and conferences. She just concluded. This is what I just thought, oh my gosh, after learning this about her, and then she brings this up, I said, oh my gosh, you have to come and talk to our group. She just concluded a year-long research program studying the effects of creativity on pain, depression, and it was conducted by Dr. Tina Hong of Crowfoot Primary Care Network Pain Clinic. And the results are being tabulated, but she's going to talk to us about that. Her vision is to facilitate creative experiences that encourage connections, validate emotions, and nourish the soul. Kathie is an active member of the Anglican Church of the Good Shepherd and operates the creative community outreach from the Good Shepard Art Studio. She was keynote speaker at the 25th anniversary of Images of Spirituality, Exploring the Creative Breath of God. Visit the Good Shepherd website. She has that, and I can send that out to people if they're interested. I can send it out with the other information. And there's a link on there to the art studio. Creative journaling with Kathie is when a theme is presented and participants use words, images, and a variety of mixed media techniques to unearth, explore, and record their responses, thoughts, and emotions. Participants are united in hope, support, and camaraderie as they journey towards creativity. It's a safe and creative space is born where negativity is banished, leaving only room for meaningful connection, self-expression, and healing. So please welcome Kathie Macduff.
No one ever reads that all. I'm sitting there going, holy, who's she talking about? Thank you, Sylvia. And it was one of those meant-to-be moments when we met over, I think it was 3 glasses of wine.
Only 2. What's in between doesn't count.
So, yeah, she pretty well told you everything I was going to say. So, no, I'll talk a little bit about art therapy, a little bit about Wellspring, a little bit about the study, and I'll probably go into depth in the benefits that can be gained. It's quite a list, and of course, it's not everything that would happen, but some of it I would guarantee could happen with an open mind. And then we have planned a little exercise so that you can experience it yourself. And I know sometimes people get a little frightened when they hear that they might have to do something creative. But what I've planned is quite simple and doable in a short period of time. I did forget one thing, and that's my bell, but I can use your cup. That's my anti-negativity bell for this afternoon. So you cannot say anything negative about your ability, because it's there whether you get to use it or not. And it's not something we're born with, it's something that we can learn. It's a skill that's acquired. If you think you could sit down and paint like someone that's studied for 20 years, then that's just not going to happen. But if you put the time into it, then you likely could. So I'm getting carried away on that side of things. So we'll start with art therapy, first of all. Lots of people think it's fairly new, but it's actually been around for about 77 years. The term was first coined in 1942, but I think it existed even before that. Primarily it was used by vets and children, and has grown. And so there's educational centers all over Canada, North America now, where people can go and train. Unfortunately, there's a split. There's two camps for art therapy. One that says creativity can be therapeutic all by its lonesome. You don't need a therapist to tell you what you're doing. Just the act of entering into a creative act, and that might mean visual arts, like what we're going to try today. It might mean dance. It might mean singing. But just doing that can set you over into the right side of your brain, and that's the place where we go to pray and meditate. It's our non-critical, non-judgmental, non-verbal. Time disappears, so we get in the flow, and it's quite an amazing place to be. We're not encouraged in our culture to be there because we're not good consumers if we're happy. So think of the pressure that's exerted. And also, just a little aside, creativity tends to be looked at as something frivolous unless you're creating something you're going to sell or produce, and that goes back to that consumer brain. But we're all about the process, not the destination. It's all about the journey, not what you're going to produce. What you produce is just the evidence that you were creative somewhere. The other camp says that you need a therapist to help you through it, to help you decipher whatever imagery you settle on. And I'm sad that there's these two camps because they kind of divide the benefits. And I don't think any one of them is all right or all wrong. It would just depend on what the person needed, I think. So that's art therapy in a nutshell. I don't practice art therapy as such. I'm of that first camp. I think that people can find their own way and can decipher their own imagery and color. If somebody paints everything all in black, that doesn't mean that they're going to commit suicide. It might just mean they like black. So anyway, that's just... So at Wellspring, as Sylvia said, it is a cancer supportive care community. It's free. All the programming is free, and we have an extensive expressive arts program there that covers everything from watercolor and ceramics and mixed media, and you name it, we've got it. We just brought in a felter, and over the 10 years that I've worked there, we take evaluations after every class, and the responses are amazing, and that's what I'll read out a little bit later, are some of the benefits that people have expressed to me, not something I'm coming up with and telling them they're going to get. This is what they tell me. So the study, I'll tell you a little bit about the study. It was initiated about 3 years ago. We started scheming it. Dr. Tina Hong was at the Mary O'Connell Palliative Care Conference, and I was a speaker there. And she heard me and got a hold of me and asked if I would be interested in participating in the study, and I thought, oh, what an opportunity. So for a year, every Wednesday, I went and taught 2 classes back to back, and we decided on watercolor because they were being very generous and allowing the people to take the supplies, so they were actually given the supplies that they could take home and use over the week, which was amazing, I thought. So it took us that long to get a grant together, it took us that long to get space, and we ended up at the pain clinic at Crowfoot, which is an amazing clinic. They are out-of-the-box thinkers, and just amazing. So I wish I could be reading you the results, but they're still being compiled. But anecdotally, everybody that participated, despite the fact of many of them going, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know why my doctor said I should be here. And then I was thinking, oh my goodness, at my studio and at Wellspring, people choose to be there. Like they read something and they go, oh, I think I'll try this. These people are being told to attend because their doctors suggested it, and they're going to try anything that the doctor suggests. So it was a different mindset, and so it was very interesting to see them change over 6 weeks. From, I'm not an artist, I can't draw a stick figure if my life depended on it. I can't. And I have, you know, that old quote, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, right? So my focus was less about the art at that point and more about trying to get them into a playful state where they're willing to just try. And that's what it's all about. We too often decide we can't do something and then we don't even give it a try. So we're right, we can't do that. And then again, as adults, we're not encouraged to give it a try, to be playful, to just have fun. So it was great over the 6 weeks. A couple of the stories from that, the physiotherapist that's on the same floor across, he actually came over when we were about halfway through to report that many of his clients were involved in the study, and he was seeing results. So that was extremely interesting. And the fact that he took the time to come over and tell them was great. I had one young girl who, it was so many levels. Her mom was a painter, and her sister was an artist as well. So the two of them used to do things, and she always felt left out. She suffered from fibromyalgia and a few other things, which all wrapped up into depression as well. So the more they went off and did things and left her alone, the worse it kind of got. So she was in this class, and after about 2 weeks, she was saying that she had spent the weekend with her mom and they had painted together. So that was kind of neat that they had found something, and it didn't take long. And then about 2 weeks later, she told me that she had been over at her sister's, and she started to experience a panic attack. There were lots of little kids around or something, and she remembered how she felt when she was painting in class, and decided to get her paints out. So she went off into a little room, started to paint, and before she knew it, 2 hours had passed, and her panic attack had disappeared. In the past, she would have gone to her pills, but she tried this, and then she was so excited to come back and tell us about that. There were lots of little stories like that. I could tell you one, I have so many, it was meant to be things. So there was this girl that I met 5 years ago on a plane. I was flying back from Vancouver. She was just newly in from Ireland, and I love Irish people. I don't know, I just want to take them home. And I just do. And so we chatted, and she was a writer, so I was telling her about creative journaling, I was telling her about Wellspring, I was telling her about my studio in a church. And then I gave her my contact information. I never saw her again. I kind of forgot because I didn't have her information anyway, and I wasn't going to stalk her, even though I love Irish people. So then my last student in my very last class was her. And she came in, and I didn't recognize her, and she didn't recognize me. I had long blonde hair when we met, and 2 years ago, I shaved my head bald and did a fundraiser for Wellspring. But in my introduction, talking about my church and my studio and Wellspring, she said, "We met on the plane." And I went, "Oh my God." So she said, "I got in only on a wait list." So she doesn't drive. She has a huge pain in her legs. And she came to us every week, and that was in February when it was snowing every week. So she was just determined to be there, and she's since come over to my studio, so I know that whatever we were supposed to connect with, we will continue to do it. And she feels like her whole world has opened up, because what had happened to her was she got sick almost the next week. So sick she couldn't work, so sick she almost lost her home, so sick that she couldn't make new friends, and being new in Canada, holy crow, so sick she couldn't contact me and do anything there. And so now she's meeting people and making connections. And so art is a way of making connections as well, I think. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about creative journaling, and then we're going to try and experience it if you're open to it. And I do have some journals on that back table, along with invitations. In June, middle of June, we're going to have a journal show. And on Friday night is the wine and cheese, so Sylvia will probably be there. I think you're traveling. And then Saturday is just the exhibition continues. But there'll be over 100 books to look at. The artists will be there. And I usually give people a little tour of the studio. So, creative journaling. It's a program that's specific to me. You might find art journaling somewhere, which is strictly the imagery, but I like to blend the words with the images. And sometimes the words come better than images, or the other way around. And we all know images are worth 1,000 words. In the journals, people don't have to spell out whatever it is they're expressing because they know it. It's their story. So privacy isn't a big issue, and if it is, then people can just paint over after they're done. So we spend in a class, in a 2-hour class, we might spend about 45 minutes to an hour writing into our subject. And what that does is help us connect and slow down. We're so busy that we don't even know what we're thinking. We don't even know what we would want to sit down and express because we have the laundry to do and the dishes to do and a phone call to make and emails to answer. And the list goes on. And then we're exhausted and wonder why. So when we take a little bit of time, and if I was to ask you what's your favorite color, and you might say blue, and that's fine, that's surface living, I think about it as that. So in the next little bit of time, I'm going to ask you, why is blue your favorite color? And you might come up with things that your grandmother always made blueberry pie, and it was always over your face, and you, whatever it might be. But you start to connect what you know to be true to memories and feelings and emotions. And then it becomes fuller. It's not just a passing thought, and you're on to the next thing. You get to dig deep into it. And sometimes those diggings make people cry, and sometimes they make people laugh, and sometimes they don't know what's going to come out. So it's a little bit scary. But in my Wellspring classes, I used to give a little present to the first person who shed a tear. But then it ended up being the same girl all the time. So, no more of that. I can't afford this. So after we go through that, people are invited to share. And that's a little scary at first too when we don't know each other. But if somebody's brave enough to do it, then someone else wants to share too, because what this person said is completely opposite to what they feel, or maybe the other way around. What this person said, it just is the same as this, and she didn't think anybody in the whole world thought that way or felt that way. So our sharing connects us and also opens our world a little bit. So I imagine, much like you folks, Wellspring is the same in that sometimes these people would never have met because what they do and where life takes them is just in different directions. And if we always hang out with the same people that are same as us, then that's a pretty small world, I think. So I really like it when people get to share. After the sharing bit, then we go into some kind of art, and my job is to show them something. And I do, but I encourage them. If what I show them has 5 steps and they only want to take 2 because they love what they've got, fine. Or after 5 steps, if they want to do 5 more, that's really good too. And despite the fact that everybody gets the exact same information from me, everybody's pages are completely different. Because it's choice of color, it's choice of image, it's choice of word. There's so many individual and personal choices that it's impossible to create the same thing. And often people will look over and go, oh, Mariana did it really well. I wish I had done it that way. That's when we ring the bell. Because in the meantime, Mariana is looking over at Linda and going, oh, I wish I had done it her way. We do that, right? We compare all the time. So I try and encourage people not to. It's your personal expression. Why would yours be anything like anybody else's? So some of the benefits of that after people have gone through a few classes, and this, I've got copies if anybody wants them, but, and I've headed it up, titled it Creative Journaling, but I believe that if we enter into any creative endeavor fully and openly, then these same benefits can be available to us as well. Not necessarily all of them, because we're all different. If I could say you do this and this is what you'll get, I'd be rich and I would have solved world problems and peace would reign, right? That's the problem, is because we're all so different. So accessing inner wisdom, stepping aside, getting out of our own way is one of the benefits. People, and we all do it, tend to stay in their head forever before doing something. They want to almost have a guarantee that when they do this, this is going to be the outcome. So if that was the way of us as children, we would never have learned how to walk. Do you know what I mean? We took risks. And as adults, we're afraid that we're not going to have the right answer. So then we don't want to look dumb, which is crazy, because how we learn is by making mistakes. And I think at this point in our lives, we should realize that there is more than one right answer. It's not like school. Anything that you might ask, there's more than one right answer. Anti-perfectionism. Our perfectionism as adults cripple us, so we get over that doing this. Everything's okay. Everything we can respond to, and we can fix, or we can paint over, and we can carry on. Connecting our outer and our inner selves. So we have the face that we present to the world, and we have our inside stuff. And sometimes we don't even know the difference, and sometimes we do. But connecting those things. Delving below the surface, a do-it kind of attitude as well. There's no right or wrong. People love that. You mean, what do you mean there's no right or wrong? At first, that can be crippling. Learning how to experiment. So you go, oh, what if I did this? What if I did that? And we learn. Exploring beliefs, values, connections. So what do you value? And what you value should be evident, right? So if we love gardening or we love flowers, but we can't get into our garden, or we don't get into our garden for whatever reason, where does that love show up? Because it's a value of ours, it has to show up somewhere. Expanding and slowing down time. You know, you get rushing. My girlfriend always just stops and she breathes deeply, and a breath is always available. And then she just sort of expands time and tells herself she's got all the time in the world. Finding meaning in our lives, connecting the dots that we don't often pay attention to. That flow that I talked about. If you've ever done anything creative or meditated or whatever, then you know the clock doesn't matter, time just goes. Gratitude, where we start to be thankful for things that we maybe don't notice or don't pay attention to. There's growth and change in our own selves as we do this work. Heightened self-awareness, which is really good. It improves our power of observation. If you're going to paint a tree, you better know what it looks like. And it's not a triangle with a stick on the end. So people are looking more and they go, oh my gosh, that color is in this palette. I think I can use this to paint that. And it's kind of fun to watch. Identifying feelings and connections, deciding what you're going to do and having an intention, not just falling into things by habit or routine. Inner revelation, so sometimes you're doing something and you go, oh my goodness, I had no idea that was from there. Finding magic in the ordinary, so just walking out the parking lot and seeing a little flower or whatever it might be, it's beautiful, right? Mindfulness, getting rid of negativity, that critic that's in your head all the time that tells you you're not good enough, you are slow, you whatever it might be. Getting rid of that, just saying, I am just fine the way I am right now. We're all fine the way we are right now. No one right answer, I already said that. Outlet for creativity, our own unique perspective. That whole idea of process over product, journey over destination. Pushing past the obvious. So I'm going to paint a tree. Oh, but maybe the story's about the sky behind the tree. And pushing past that and seeing something again. Recognizing that we often operate from a lack attitude. I don't have enough of this, whatever it might be. Recognizing that we have reoccurring issues. If we don't deal with them, they get bigger, right? Those things we box up just grow. And that can be scary, but once we've kind of opened the box, seen that it's not so scary and put it back in again, we gain a little confidence. We can reduce pain, anxiety, our fear, our stress. And this could be a little simple metaphor, but when you drop a hammer on your toe and that pain captures your whole attention, even though the rest of your body might be working just fine, that pain is all that is. By being creative, entering in some painting, journaling, whatever it might be, the pain still exists. For a moment you get a little distance from it. When you come back to it, it's not as big. It's not that it goes away, but it's not as big. And it becomes a tool that you can use to get that distance that's sometimes needed. Relaxing, finding peace, revealing our passions. We get to do it alone or with a group. So the solitude and silence is fabulous. We get to unplug from all the electronics or making connections with people. Unlimited self-expression, so you can write your heart out in a journal. Lots of people just like the words, lots of people just like the images, and lots of people just depends on the day. But there's so much available. And then it's sort of my personal mantra too. What we focus on grows. It's a fact. When any of you women in the room were pregnant, you noticed every other pregnant woman everywhere. The minute you buy a blue car, you notice every blue car on the road. What we focus on grows. If we focus on negativity, if we focus on lack, whatever we focus on, it will grow. The very interesting thing is that with a little attention, not just letting it happen, because we're not thinking about it, because we're too busy, with a little attention, we can actually turn that around and start deciding what we want to focus on.